video, we are going to discuss about immediate or direct causes of a death from a wound. And in initial part of a video, we are going to discuss about the hemorrhage, and the types of hemorrhages, and how it has been classified, and reflex vehicle inhibition, and shock, in shock pathophysiology, and the types of shock, and the autopsy finding of the shock has been discussed. And injury to vital organs, what could be the reason begin. And in last section of the video, we are going to discuss about the natural causes or natural diseases that can arise or that can be aggravated due to an insult of a wound. It causes, first and foremost, is the hemorrhage. Second is the reflex vehicle inhibition. Third is the shock. And fourth is injury to the vital organs. Fifth is as a result of a natural disease that has been aggravated or that has been precipitated due to a presence of a wound. Here, when you refer from one book to another, where some headings like top 3 has been explained in immediate causes, where some authors totally differ. They explain all 5 under the heading immediate causes, whatever may be. So kindly follow this pattern of while writing whenever an immediate cause of death that have been arisen after a wound. So kindly follow these 5 points and try to explain, and most preferably maybe even ask as a 5-mark question. And we will switch on to the explanation part of these all 5 listed headings. First and foremost, the hemorrhage. And hemorrhage means an escape of blood from a vascular system. Here, the hemorrhage can be classified as based on the type of the vessel involved, based on the site of an oozing, whether it is external hemorrhage or an internal hemorrhage, whether within the body cavity or outside the body cavity. And third, based on the time duration, it can be divided as primary, reactionary, and secondary hemorrhage. And the fourth classification of hemorrhage is based on the trauma, with or without trauma. First and foremost, capillary venous hemorrhage and arterial hemorrhage. Here, whenever an arterial part has been involved, there will be a rapid loss of blood, and even it can result in a sudden death. Here, venous and a capillary can result in a gradual loss of blood, and even it can be fatal when there is no any medical intervention. And coming to point number 2, based on the whether the bleeding or a hemorrhage is within the body cavity or outside. In case of an external, where there been a wound present, where an oozing occurs at the site, where at the scene of crime, or on the individual himself, where hemorrhage has been present or the oozing has been present. In internal, where there been a minimal injury on the external surface, where a resultant force has caused into a rupture of an underlying blood vessel, and a bleeding has occurred within the body cavity. And in case of a primary, reactionary, secondary, again it is based on the time period. In case of a primary hemorrhage, the hemorrhage that occurs at the time of the injury infliction, or otherwise on the corresponding course of action, a hemorrhage that occurs. Here, when you talk about reactionary, where in a aftermath of a primary hemorrhage, where it occurs usually a time period of 4 to 6 hours after a primary hemorrhage. And again, this numerical value varies from one author to other, where another author explains that in any hemorrhage that is seen within 24 hours after a primary hemorrhage, those are being termed as a reactionary hemorrhage. Ideally, 4 to 6 hours, you take it as a cut-off time after a injury. And here, the reasons behind reactionary hemorrhages are due to a rise in blood pressure after a recovery from a state of a shock. The patient recovers from a state of a shock, where due to his recovery, there been a sudden increase in a blood pressure. So a clot that has been formed at that site either dislodges or moves from the native site, can result in a reactionary hemorrhage. And in case of a secondary hemorrhage, any hemorrhage that occurs after 24 hours, and the usual period of a secondary hemorrhage is 7 to 14th day after a primary impact or a primary injury. Here the reason began due to a sepsis foci or otherwise due to presence of an infection, which causes an erosion of the vessel wall and a presence of a hemorrhage occurs or a bleeding occurs. And in case of a traumatic or a spontaneous hemorrhages, where according to the various type of wound presented, where a bleeding occurs through. And in case of a spontaneous hemorrhage, where there is an absence of trauma, where a spontaneous rupture of a vessel that occurs and it is presented as a hemorrhage. Here the examples could be a rupture of any aneurysm on any part of a blood vessel. Second, due to any bleeding diastasis, where individuals in inborn defects of a vascular system could be the reason. And coming to next slide number, we will see about 4 definitions towards these 4 terminologies. First and foremost, a petechia is nothing but a minute hemorrhagic spots that have been seen on an external surface, and most commonly it is of a capillary or a venular in origin. And here you can able to see multiple spots on a part of an external surface. And when you talk about ecchymosis here, or otherwise in a contusion, or otherwise in a bruises, where the area of a collection is larger when you compare to one petechia, and here it is nothing but a extravasation of a blood. And coming to point number 3, in a hematoma is nothing but a localized collection of a blood, usually in a state of clotted and forming like a tumor-like swelling within the tissue space. And this is what is a hematoma. And again, hematoma can be even spontaneous or even a traumatic in etiology. And the 4th is about apoplexy, is nothing but a large effusion of blood into an organ, and most commonly it is used for a cerebral hemorrhage. About external hemorrhage, according to the type of blood vessel that has been involved during a course of injury, if it has been a large vessel or otherwise a small vessel. First and foremost, if a large vessel being involved, there will be a rapid loss of blood and it will be in sudden, and in case this can cause a rapid fatality on an individual. And if a small blood vessel that has been injured, where is a progression or there will be only a gradual loss of blood, and in some cases even minimal loss of blood could have occurred, where with an appropriate treatment and management the individual could have been saved. And coming to sudden versus gradual loss of blood, here in case again a sudden loss of blood is always dangerous when you compare to a same amount of blood that has been gradually lost. Here the mechanism of shocks comes in play, where if there been a gradual loss of blood, there will be a time space for a body to recover or to compensate the loss, either by adapting into any of the physiological mechanism, and it can recover. So that is the reason behind. So if it is sudden loss or a gradual loss, then sudden loss is more fatal when you compare to a gradual loss of a blood of a same quantity. And point number 3, can a minor injury be fatal? Yes, a minor injury can be fatal in an individual who has been suffering from any bleeding disorders or any hematological conditions. Here The examples could be if an individual suffers from an hemophilia, where a minimal injury that has been inflicted on the individual is sufficient in ordinary course, and it can result in a fatal of a person. But if a same amount of injury, even a little bit larger on a hemophilia patient, it has been inflicted on some other person with no past history relating to any bleeding disorders or any hematological condition, the individual could survive. But the same amount of injury caused on a individual with a bleeding disorder can be fatal. And coming to point number 4, and in point number 4, quantifying the amount of blood loss. Here, least likely to get a chance to visit a scene of crime where we only receive deceased for an autopsy. In those cases, by seeing the soaking of a blood on a part of a cloth, we can able to assume this could be it is again a perception or only an observation quantifying of a amount of blood loss. And other possible way is on the scene of crime. For example, if you get a photograph of the scene of crime, the presence of surrounding blood near to a victim, by which we can able to quantify the amount of loss. Third is by on the internal examination or even on the external examination of the oral mucosa and the conjunctiva of the deceased individual, we can able to assess the palar status of the viscera. And here again, it is only a provisional. Here again, it is only a provisional. This much amount of blood could have been lost. All right. And here in case where it is only a quantifying the possible assumption value, right, on whatever we quote, so it won't be correct. And in case of an internal hemorrhage, where the etiology could be of any penetrating wound or a gunshot wound, or due to a penetrating wound or any sort of an injury where the underlying organs or a vessel has been gone for a rupture. Here, in case of a penetrating wound, the example could be of a stab injury, and here where a blood without oozing outside the body cavity, it has collected within the body cavity. And here in case, the blood can accumulate in a larger quantity in pleural as well as in the peritoneal cavity. And here on the image, what you see is a collection of clotted blood within the peritoneal cavity. On opening the abdominal cavity, you can able to see a localized collection, and most commonly it will be present on the dependent part of a body. And here in case, when you compare to a pleural as well as towards the peritoneal cavity, if there been a localized collection within the pleural cavity, where a blood will not go for a clotting, instead it will remain in a state of fluid, and the reason behind is rapid defibrillation due to movements of a lung. And again, in cases where due to in a peritoneal cavity, in some cases where if there been a individual has been treated or there been a presence of a wound and he has been admitted for a longer period, where there will be a collection of clotted blood associated with a septicemic oozing fluid. And here again, there are other possibility where a blood within a peritoneal cavity can also be in state of a fluid, where there been a decreased time span between infliction of an injury and the death of the individual. If it been shorter, then the blood will be in a state of a fluid, and if there been adequate gap, then the blood can be converted as a blood clot. And coming to mechanism of a death, and in mechanism of death relating to hemorrhage, if there been a rapid loss of greater than 1/3 of a blood volume, total blood volume, the individual will go to a state of irreversible irreversible hypovolemic shock, and he can present with the signs of hypotension, tachycardia, and even according to the body part, and there will be a central compromise of a blood volume. So a brain will go to a state of an ischemia, and even the cerebral, the neurons can also go for a phase of death. And in case of children, women, and old people, where in a minimal quantity of blood loss can be even fatal. And point number 2, interference with the vital function. Due to hemorrhage, there been a interference in the vital function. First and foremost, an individual receives a blow or an injury over a part of his anterior chest wall, and due to the injury sustained, a ribs goes for a fracture, and underlying tissues have been torn, or there been even a associated vessel injury, or even associated rupture of a part of a heart has been presented, where there been a localized connection within the pericardial sac, where it interferes with the heart for its complete working capacity. And here, if there been a presence of a cardiac tamponade, where heart can't pump out the adequate quantity of blood outside, so the cardiac output ultimately decreases. And if there been a total compromise in the total volume, again the venous return decreases, and there will be fall in blood pressure. And second such example, when there been a head injury, there are two possibilities where, according to the site that has been involved, according to the size of the hemorrhage that has been presented, where a cerebral part can go for a state of compression, where according to the part involved, the vital function of that part can be compromised. And if in case where a medulla has been involved, where the vital functions can be gone for an halt, even a respiratory compromises is more likely. And point number 3, hemorrhage act as a mechanical barrier. And here, any facial trauma where underlying soft tissue has gone for an injury, where an oozing or bleeding that has been presented can track into a respiratory pathway and can interfere with the respiratory efforts of a person, and it can result in asphyxia also. And here literally the victim drowns in his own blood. And if this is a presentation where an individual has received multiple facial injuries, where soft tissues are gone for an injury, and breakage, where a bleeding that has been presented can be tracked into a respiratory tract, and it can causes a mechanical barrier, and there will be a compromise of a respiratory system, and it can result in asphyxia. Point number 2, whatever we have discussed is about hemorrhage, and we are heading to a second topic, reflex vagal inhibition. And here these are the listed synonyms for reflex vagal inhibition. First and foremost is vasovagal shock. Second, instantaneous physiological death, nervous apoplexy, reflex cardiac arrest, vagal inhibition, vagal shock, vasovagal inhibition of heart, vasovagal syncope. These are other names for reflex vagal inhibition. And in reflex vagal inhibition, ultimate things like where a sudden death can occur within a second or in a minute. And here even a trauma could be in minor or relatively even simpler, and even it could be even harmless, can cause us a peripheral stimulation of a baroreceptors that are being located in carotid sinus, carotid body, and carotid sheath have been activated. And herein where there will be a transient increase in a blood pressure, where afferent impulses are transmitted through Herning's nerve and followed by glossopharyngeal nerve has been activated, and through the tract the vagus nerve has been stimulated. And in reflex, when a vagus nerve has been stimulated, On reflex, it slows down the heart rate, and followed by there will be a dilatation of a blood vessel, and there will be a fall in blood pressure. And here it can cause a sudden death, where on an external examination there won't be any evidence of an injury, and even on internal autopsy finding, even after a complete autopsy, we could not even make out a single pathognomic finding. And here in case, ultimately, on a part of an opinion where reflex vehicle inhibition can lead to into a negative autopsy, or otherwise the terms like where there is no finding or only a minimal finding has been presented, then it leads to an obscure autopsy, and ultimately even after doing a thorough medical and microbiological and pathological examination, we fail to reveal the cause or the exact cause of a opinion. Coming to point number 3, and it is about shock. And here these are the listed types of shock: hypovolemic, traumatic, vasovagal, cardiogenic, neurogenic, septic, burns, psychogenic, and anaphylactic shocks. And out of all listed, hypovolemic shocks and traumatic shocks are more common in routine practice, and other like neurogenic shock and even anaphylactic shocks even can go for an undetected even after a complete autopsy, or those can present only within a minimal finding, and it can lead to an obscure autopsy also. And vasovagal, right? Vasovagal we have discussed earlier. Their vasovagal shock or otherwise reflex vagal inhibition, right? Before going to the types of shock, we will discuss about the pathophysiology behind the shock. And there are 3 stages of shock, and first and foremost is a compensated stage, or otherwise in a non-progressive stage, second progressive stage, and third is a irreversible stage of shock. And first and foremost, non-progressive stage. Coming to first stage, or otherwise on a compensated stage, or on a non-progressive stage of shock. And here there's been an acute loss of blood of less than 10% of the total blood volume can result in decreased in venous return, decreased cardiac output, followed by there will be a decrease in blood pressure. So the body needs to cope up with the current situation, and where a compensatory mechanisms like baroreceptor mechanism, a renal mechanism, and ADH mechanism have been activated. ADH is antidiuretic hormone mechanism. All 3 mechanisms have been activated, and on activation of baroreceptor mechanism, there will be initial phase of tachycardia due to sympathetic stimulation. There will be tachycardia, and due to presence of tachycardia, there will be an increased cardiac output, and followed by there will be an increase in blood pressure. Baroreceptors also causes vasoconstriction, and this vasoconstriction ultimately trying to increase the blood pressure of an individual. And second such mechanism is a renal mechanism, where a renin that has been secreted in a larger abundant quantity, and due to secretion of an renin, where angiotensin 2 formation is being increased, and this presence of this angiotensin 2, it ultimately performs a function of produce intense vasoconstriction, and due to intense vasoconstriction, there will be a compensatory increase in blood volume. And angiotensin also increase the secretion of an aldosterone, and followed by if there be a presence of an aldosterone, there will be water and sodium retention, and gradually increases the blood volume and ultimately increases the cardiac output, and then it follows the same pathway. And ADH stimulation. ADH is antidiuretic hormone stimulation. Stimulation mechanism here. ADH is being secreted from posterior pituitary, where it orders kidneys to retain both warning signs has been addressed, then it halts here and there won't be any progression towards the other stage of shock. And if there have been any compromises or the hemorrhages have been larger in quantity or according to the age of the individual, if the injuries are larger and the hemorrhage is larger in quantity, or the individual doesn't respond to a treatment, then a patient will progress to stage 2 of shock. And in stage 2 of shock, even after activating compensatory mechanisms, individual fail to respond or fail to recover from that state of shock, and even an appropriate treatment has been provided to the individual, he fails to recover, then the individual lands in a stage 2 of progressive stage of shock. Here again, where there been a decrease in cardiac output as well as decrease in the blood pressure, and there been a continuous loss of blood in the third space, where it can cause severe myocardial ischemia, and followed by there will be a release of toxins from the damaged tissue, and it further deteriorates the cardiac function. And if there has been a deterioration in the cardiac function, ultimately the cardiac output again tends to decreases, and there will be a severe decrease in blood pressure. Again, this cycle continues. And due to loss of blood flow, it causes suppression of the vasomotor center, a severe vasodilatation occurs, and further decrease in the blood pressure occurs. And due to low blood pressure, the thrombus formation in small blood vessels like capillaries have been increased, and here the main function is to increase the capillary permeability, and followed by allowing the passage of fluids from blood vessels into interstitial spaces. Those are occurring, and where all these pathways leads to continuous deterioration of tissues, and the shock progress to the next stage or the third stage, or otherwise the irreversible stage of shock. And circulatory shock is otherwise irreversible stage of circulatory shock, or otherwise in a refractory stage, where it is a last stage prior to a collapse of an individual. Even a medical intervention at this stage can lead to a negative result or a death of a patient. Even a blood transfusion that has been even carried out can be useless at this stage. And here, due to there being a compromise in the circulatory volume, where most of the organs like brain, heart, and other vital organs fails to function, and they ultimately can't restore the blood volume, and finally they go to a state of inactivity, and finally it causes the death of a person. And here and again, ultimately the blood volume, cardiac output, everything decreases, and finally a death of a person occurs. And coming to first type of shock, cardiogenic or otherwise a cardiac shock, it is results from interference in the action of a heart and possible etiological condition. First and foremost, deficiency of a filling, example cardiac tamponade, and second is deficiency of emptying due to myocardial infarction or otherwise acute pulmonary embolism. Here myocardial infarction is one such cause for an intrinsic myocardial damage, and it also causes deficiency in emptying, where the oxygenated blood need not to be can't be pumped into aorta and for the distribution to the entire body. And in case of acute pulmonary embolism, where there have been outflow obstruction, and again it causes deficiency of emptying. And third such is intrinsic myocardial damage, and the reason behind is myocardial infarction, and other functional disorders like ventricular arrhythmia, and in extreme cases either due to a trauma or an overloaded heart can go for a rupture, and ventricular rupture among them is more common, And these are the reasons behind cardiac shock. Coming to traumatic shock, again here, most commonly of on a hypovolemic state or on a hemorrhagic state, and here externally it can result with an open wounds and the bleeding continues, and in cases where the bleeding that occurs due to a torn vessel or rupture of a visceral organs. And here traumatic contusion of a heart itself can cause a pump failure as well as a state of a shock. And here not only by the most common example that due to high motor vehicle accidents where a steering wheel been collided with an anterior chest wall and underlying soft tissue like heart has been injured. And here again it is a combination of both, either it could be of an external or even an internal bleeding can result in a traumatic shock. And in traumatic shock there is another syndrome that has been, and when you refer your textbook, again this crushed syndrome has been discussed under delayed causes of death from a wound, but even in some cases it may be the immediate cause for causing death. And again due to a traumatic pathology where there have been a tubular necrosis of kidney as a result of trauma, and in turn it is due to the necrosis of the muscle, where the most common example wherein a part of a leg that has been caught between the derbices, either due to a landslide or due to a vehicular accident or an industrial accident. And here in case even crushed syndrome can occur during an extensive burn and even in some states of poison usually associated with mercuric components. Here on autopsy, on external surface or on the gross surface where there is no any change or there is no any abnormality present, again only by the microscopical examination we can able to detect degeneration and the necrosis of focal portions of distal part of Henle's loop and distal convoluted tubules have been noted. And here in most of the cases proximal convoluted tubules would be spared. And other names for crush syndrome is traumatic rhabdomyolysis and Bywaters syndrome. These are other names for crush syndrome. And coming to hypovolemic shock, again almost most of the points are leading towards the state of hemorrhage. Again just it will be just a repetition. Loss of blood either occur to a massive hemorrhage or due to a loss of a plasma volume. It can occur due to a state of vomiting, diarrhea and severe burns. And when an individual presents with hypovolemic shock, and the clinical presentation will be there will be a decrease in cardiac output, so there is a low blood pressure and a thin thready pulse will be present, pale cold skin and increase in respiratory effort will be present, and sixth there will be restlessness and lethargy will be associated with the state. Coming to endotoxic shock, and this is almost closely related to features of septicemia, and in cases where there has been a release of endotoxins from the especially of gram-negative bacterial infections can induce intravascular coagulation just prior to the endothelial damage. And again in some textbooks it has been merged with septic shock. In some textbooks in a separate title and the explanation has been provided. State of psychogenic shock, again here it can develop or it can follow in a sudden fright or in a severe pain or even a blow over a part of a testis, and here the pain being in extreme painful condition where a person may go to a psychogenic shock. And in case of a septic, where it can present within a type of septic shock. One is hyperdynamic, warm septic shock, hypovolemic, hypodynamic, and cold septic shock. And the responsible etiology is gram-negative infections. And herein again, and if there in a presence of septic shock, the initial pictures will be of increased cardiac output, tachycardia, and warm skin in case of warm type of septic shock, and there will be a gradual peripheral vasodilatation associated. And due to presence of endotoxin that have been absorbed into the bloodstream can causes generalized inflammatory state of an individual. And in case of a cold septic shock, the picture will be of hypovolemic and hypodynamic state where the patient's extremities and the patient become cold, clampy, drowsy, and tachypneic. And here, due to presence of endotoxemia, there will be a circulatory compromises also. A cardiac failure or a circulatory failure can occur, and followed by there will be an increased vascular permeability and peripheral vasodilatation can occur. Shock. In anaphylactic shock, the first most common etiology is penicillin administration has been responsible for anaphylactic shock, and other possible causes for anaphylactic shocks could be of a serum injection, anesthetic drugs, medications, Dextran, due to a sting bite or a consumption of a shellfish. And here again, only the not everyone been allergic to, where an individual with an predisposing allergic conditions or there been a state of immunocompromising state can present with an anaphylactic shock. And here the mechanism begins where an antigen comes with an IE immunoglobulin, where followed by there will be release of histamines and the substance of anaphylaxis. And the individual present with an clinical features like bronchospasm, laryngeal edema, respiratory distress, vasodilatation, hypotension, and shock. And here again, some features like for example, there have been administration of any of these etiological agents or due to a sting bite, where we can, on the autopsy, we can able to see or only make out a site of an injection mark, where the history will be totally confusing, or it may be a history where the relatives of a patient throws an allegation on the treating doctor, where some outdated drug has been given, or a drug where it has crossed beyond the expiry date has been given, and followed by my relative has been dead. This will be the sort of history, and most commonly anaphylactic shocks can cause even a suit of negligence on the part of a doctor. And when we receive this sort of cases for autopsy, where clinical features like bronchospasm and laryngeal edema, and bronchospasm highly difficult, and again it can't be detected in during autopsy, where in case of laryngeal edema, it can be made out when the time period between the death and the beginning of autopsy is shorter, and if there been more time between a death and the beginning of the autopsy, where these laryngeal edemas and other findings would have disappeared. On autopsy, we can get only a finding where there been an injection prick mark, or there been a history suggestive of an injection prick mark, and we can able to collect that area from detailing toxicological examinations and other, where again there will be only minimal findings presented or no findings, and ultimately it can lead to an obscure autopsy. And here in this case, we need to collect histopathological specimens also, where if you can't make out get a straight opinion after the completion, where a cause of death can be kept pending, and followed by after receiving histopathological reports and other toxicological analysis reports, a final opinion can be arrived. And in case of neurogenic shock, here it is caused by a traumatic or otherwise a pharmacological blockade of a sympathetic nervous system. Here again anesthetic accidents, spinal cord injuries, burns are responsible for neurogenic shock. And here the mechanism being producing a dilatation of resistant arterioles and capitans vessels, veins, leading to hypovolemia, bradycardia, and hypotension. Again, burn shock is another type of a shock where again it could be even a neurogenic shock, but it is a different entity where there been a loss of plasma volume, and when you compare to the actual loss of blood, the loss of plasma will be more, and it can occur when there been a involvement of greater than 25% of a total body surface that has been involved. Herein again the mechanism, insult of burn, there has been a decrease in extracellular volume, there has been a decrease in plasma volume, where an associated compensatory mechanism is hemoconcentration has occurred, and there has been a sluggish in a blood flow, and the vital parts, there has been a decreased supply of blood, and followed by a collapse of a individual. And in case of surgical shock, either it can occur or otherwise during a course of surgery or just immediately after a surgical procedure, and reasons behind are due to anesthetic agents, loss of blood or a plasma volume. Other possible reasons could be of emotional reactions, infections either occurred during a course of surgery or the individual being suffering from a state prior to the surgery due to liberation of substances from a severe traumatized tissues are also responsible for surgical shock. Autopsy in external findings were relating to quantifying a hemorrhage, where an approximate idea or approximate estimation can be made out by seeing the clothes state of an individual, whether it has been soaked completely or there been a sparing area, those again to be noted. And third such is on the anemic state of the viscera, whether if the tissues have been pale enough, then the loss of blood is in larger quantity, or if tissues and soft tissue retains the pinkish color, then the loss is being only minimal, right? Again, it is a professional opinion in case of soaking of clothes, and if in case of an anemic state of viscera, it will almost in a approximate estimation can be done. Again, in external examination, on eye signs, again look for conjunctiva, where there been a paleness or there been hemorrhagic spots can be made out, and even if there have been features of asphyxia, there will be some petechial hemorrhages seen on most of the underlying viscera or even in the soft tissues. And regarding rigor mortis and to be opined, and in postmortem lividity, where if there been a severe blood loss, where the PML or the postmortem lividity can't be even estimated. In extreme cases of anemia, even can't be estimated due to lack of hemoglobin. And here there been a rapid loss or total loss of blood, so PML is can't be opened in cases of extreme severe hemorrhages. And even if it present, it will be of minimal, and even in dark skinned individuals, highly even difficult to open. And changes on circulatory organs, where congestions of all internal organs, edema of viscera will be noted, and petechial hemorrhages in most of the serous membrane can be noted. And in point 2, most of the organs where there will be features of degeneration and necrosis will be present as a result of a compromise in the circulatory volume. Features of specific organs, and first and foremost it is about brain, where if a changes can occur if a victim survives for a period of 12 to 24 hours. After a primary injury or a primary infliction of a wound, a victim survives for a period of 12 to 24 hours, then the features can be seen. And the most commonly seen finding will be ischemic encephalopathy and shrinkage or otherwise a swelling of a part of a neuron, where nucleus of the neuron will show features of pycnotic. Death of neurons will be replaced by fibrillar glycosis. And here, need to remember again, if a victim survives for a period of 12 to 24 hours, then these features can be noted. If a death being instantaneous, then these findings will not be seen. And in case of heart, the features like fatty changes will be seen. Again, after survival of 18 hours after an injury, there could be a possibility where only 20% of cases fatty changes can be demonstrated. But if an individual passes or survives greater than 3 to 4 days, then a well-marked fatty changes is seen. And here, subendocardial hemorrhages and a necrosis of the cardiac myocardium cells sometimes appear in all forms of shock. GIT, the content of stomach and the intestine will be of fully blood-stained fluid, and blood is relatively dark red in color, and more commonly it in fluid state. And mucosa will show features of congestion and edematous, and in some spaces or in some spots there may be hemorrhagic erosions and ulcerations, and necrosis is also seen. The entire picture, like whether been an hemorrhagic erosions, ulcerations, and necrosis, been termed under hemorrhagic enteropathy. Coming to liver, where in gross there won't be any appreciable changes noted, but in cases of in microscopic examination due to perfusion deficit or a perfusion compromise, where fatty changes of liver can be seen only after 18 hours of survival of an individual after a primary infliction of wound. And a gradual extent, if a fatty change being presented, there will be a gradual extension from a central part of a liver to the lobules. And in case of spleen, in septicemia, there will be enlargement. In case of septic shock, there will be an enlargement, softening of spleen, and the non-specific toxic signs is also seen in other organs like heart and liver. And when you take about adrenal shows focal lipid depletion of a cortex, and usually occurs after 24 hours after survival, and it is well marked on 3rd and 4th day of survival. Focal depletion of adrenal. Into point number 4, injury to a vital organ. An injury to vital organ. Here, the organs which performs in a distinct function, and here a vital organs, a organ which serves or which performs in a distinct function like brain and heart, where when they receive a severe injury, it can be rapidly fatal, where your quantity of blood loss may not be so important, or there won't be a question regarding a quantity of blood loss, where it can be rapidly fatal, and even on ordinary course of nature it can be fatal. And coming to other diseased organs, where like spleen or an intestinal ulcer or an aneurysm, where it has received a slightest of trauma, where on that infliction The organs can go for a phase of rupture in case of spleen, and an intestinal ulcer can show features of perforation. An aneurysm can go for a state of bursting or otherwise a rupture. When a same amount of injury that has been applied on a normal spleen, normal blood vessel will not cause this sort of a fatality. But if it has been previously diseased organ, then a slightest injury is sufficient enough to cause a death of a person. And coming to natural disease and conditions. Natural diseases, for example, been suffering from a past episodes of myocardial infarctions, or he been suffering from a miliary aneurysm, or a fatty degeneration of a heart, or been suffering from amoebic liver abscess, or suffering from a hydrated cyst or an enlarged spleen due to any causes of splenomegaly like malaria, Kala-Azar, and other even hematological disorders, where a minimal trauma that has been applied, and the explanation to the previous slide almost stands the same, where a minimal violence can cause a death in a patient, or a death can be accelerated in this case. Summary of this video presentation. In this video lecture, we have seen about immediate causes of death from a wound. And the first topic we have discussed about hemorrhages, their classifications, and the possibilities where in a large, small vessel, or there been a sudden or on a gradual loss of blood occurs, and which is more fatal, and what are the autopsy findings we have discussed. And point number 2, towards reflex vehicle inhibition, it can always lead to a sudden death, and the death will be instantaneous, and there is no specific autopsy findings for reflex vehicle inhibition. And also we discussed about the pathophysiology of or otherwise the pathway by which a vagal nerve that has been stimulated, and what does it causes, and how a death can occur due to a reflex vehicle inhibition. And point number 3, towards the pathophysiology of shock, we have discussed, and the types of shock, and with appropriate images and with appropriate adequate explanations, we have seen about the types of shock. And towards the last section, we also discussed about injuries to the vital organs and how could be fatal with the examples. The last slide, and the natural diseases that have been complicated due to a wound we have discussed. And thank you so much for your patient listening. If there have been any doubt, query regarding the content of the video, or there have been a query even after your repeated studying, kindly address those issues in the comment section below, or otherwise in the social media links provided in description section. Those issues will be addressed.